But what leadership skills are critical to the survival of small to medium-sized estate agencies at the moment, or businesses within the property industry? What are the skills that are critical, do you think? Who wants to lead me on that?
I'm quite happy to lead, but
I've got an answer that is linked to what you were saying earlier about what is your business model? What are you there to achieve? And I think too many businesses lose track and sight of what it is they're trying to achieve. And for me, a leader needs to be in and around the business constantly banging the drum on what, bringing people back, resetting them, reminding them what the vision is and stopping them from losing track of that. If you've got core values, if you've got a mission, plenty of companies do those things and then stop there. And they haven't got leaders around the business constantly holding people accountable, drawing them back. We've a lot of what I think we've covered today comes back to complacency. We can't bother to do that, or people can't be bothered to do that, or they don't want to do that. Leaders should be holding people accountable and stopping. We talk about radiators and drains, don't we? People in a business who radiate positivity, and do you attract to radiators, or do you attract to the people that drain the positivity that and leaders should be supporting that. Yeah, absolutely. They should be recognising the
energy suckers, mood hoovers. Yeah.
I think also you need to be able to recognise who's part of your team and who's helping out as an employee. The members of your team. When we were talking earlier about non-commission roles and all of that sort of stuff, I bet all of us, certainly Peter, in some of the positions that he's worked in, has worked with people that were phenomenal and probably did earn huge amounts of money. But if the shit hit the fan and they weren't going to get paid, they would have still been there cheering on the fact that we got 14 leads in at the weekend. I want to have the morning meeting, I want to have the Friday meeting. They're your team. And then there are people in your company that are your employees that just want to be told, this is what I need you to do today, and they'll do that job and they'll do it well, and then they'll go home, and that'll be it. And I think it's important for a company to identify. We often get emails from people saying, struggling to get the team to do this. That's not your team then. They're your employees. And maybe you need to
they require a manager, but they require a manager rather than a leader. And we kind of came across this earlier. Yeah. So for me, and I'm sure there are many opinions out there, but for me, a leader is the person who is out front, setting the tone, reminding people what the vision is, reminding people what the mission is. The role of a manager is to manage tasks. It's to say, what were we setting out to do this week, and have we done it? Are we on track? And they are two different roles. Now, you can do both. Yeah. Some people are much better suited to being inspirational leaders. Some people are more better, are able to follow up and make sure the plan is,
It's a skill.
Some people can do both, but it is a different skill set for me. It is different. And, those people who want to just come to work and be told what to do require managers. I think...
But what if you're an estate agent and you've got a small business and you've got 4 staff and you haven't got a manager? What are the skills that they're going to need today? Because I agree with you, there's definitely differences in, if you're a slightly bigger organisation.
It doesn't have to be.
Okay.
In a small organisation, the leader is the manager.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you do have to do both. Yeah. Even if one of them is out of your comfort zone, you're going to have to do it.
Yeah. So your question was small business and critical. Those are the words that you used.
Yeah, critical skills.
Yeah, and for me, it's a story that is don't tell me that you're funny. Show me that you're funny.
Yeah.
And at the moment, leadership in today as we speak, is showing them how to be the agent that you needed to be 20 years ago. Go and show them all the skills, because we will all know that we pick up the phone and speak to people and you can't tell their voices sound the same when they answer the phone. That's nurture, isn't it? That is the environment. That's natural nurture. That is the environment of learning by association. Go and teach your skills to your team through observation, through them.
I've heard a lot. Certainly hearing a lot, reading a lot on LinkedIn, where people say, it's back to the good old days, it's all about this, all about that, and I definitely agree. So showing is definitely one of the skills. What are the other ones that are critical?
So I think you can be both. Sometimes you have to be both. I think the difference between a manager and a leader is that managers tend to push, so they're pushing you to do things that are process driven. A leader, and it's going to sound like a terrible cliche, I don't mean it to, but a leader pulls people with them rather than pushing them to do things. So
the old military thing about, the captain gets out the trenches in World War I and runs, all the rest of it. If he's a leader, the people are behind him, kind of thing. So I think that speaks to culture and the integrity around that leader in terms of them being admired and respected by the people that work with them, on the basis that they just want to be part of that team. That word team, I think, is very important. So I think they're two incredibly different things, and I think you were kind of talking about this earlier in terms of the lack of leadership in the estate agency sector. That's definitely true. I can hardly think, with present company accepted, hardly think of many what I would call figureheads or leaders in big estate agency businesses in the UK for the last 10 years. Back in the old days, you had the likes of you, I'm not just saying because you're here, but you had John Hunt, and you had Harry Hill, and so on. They were seen, I think, by the troops, if you want to call them that, as leaders. I want to be led by you. I will go over the top with you. I want to work hard and stay late in the office and go above and beyond because I respect Harry or I respect Peter. I think the industry's kind of lost that, and I've written about this quite a lot around certain high-profile businesses that have had people that have started to run them after the founders have left, who I'm talking about now, where those people are managers latterly and don't have property experience. And guess what? Those businesses have not succeeded as a consequence.
Can I just? I think I've got that as one of my questions. So it's good timing. But Sarah, you were going to say something a minute ago on the leadership question. Did you want to add something to that? Critical skills that we're looking for.
I think first of all, I think it's really important that we recognise that anyone can be a leader.
Okay.
You don't actually have to be the owner or necessarily the figurehead. But I think that it's possible to lead the vision and the culture from within. To your point, it's almost like, are they the team player? But I think actually we can really celebrate the fact that there are leaders within our businesses that are not necessarily at director level. And I think we should celebrate that, and we should encourage that, because actually that's what promotes a fantastic culture. I think it was Peter Drucker who said that strategy is a commodity, favourite word today, and execution is an art. And I think that
culture eats strategy for breakfast.
Yeah, and I think it's really pertinent that we sort of look at that. I think, from my perspective, I say a lot of the same things. I'm acutely aware of that, but communication. So just like the clarity of communication with our client base, it is vitally important that we enable our people to be held to account, because we have effectively communicated our expectations to them. So often you hear, my team haven't done this, but then we fail to look in the mirror and say they maybe haven't done it because we haven't effectively communicated to them the true expectations, and we haven't given them the skills
I've made that mistake.
to do
100%.
that. So for me, yes, it's communication. It's having a plan and knowing how to sort of work to that plan. Crucially, knowing what to do if you start to deviate off plan, not to panic and start to have that a little bit of calmness. It's having that calmness to and sort of staying on track or not panicking if you move off track. Showing compassion, I think, is a really important point at the moment as well. You guys know that most of you know how I feel about mental health and well-being. I think it's been a very challenging time for everybody on the front line. Yes, we've had a bit of a party in terms of revenue, but that doesn't mean that hasn't been without its challenges in itself. Long hours, you've got 49 viewings on property, great. That's 48 people who are really, really upset because they didn't get the house, so they're shouting at you and they hold you to account. So we've got to, I think compassion is a big one for me, and making sure you look after your people. And above all, I think, you've just got to be laser focused on what it is that you're trying to do here. What is the vision? What is the plan? And how are we going to execute it? And you've got to sort of live and breathe that as a leader. That I don't know if I've gone into enough detail.
No, I think you have. Well, I think there's a great video on YouTube if anyone's watching this. It's Simon Sinek, and it's Performance versus Trust. It talks about Navy SEALs. I don't know whether you've ever watched it, and who they would rather have in their team. It's about 2 or 3 minutes, but it absolutely talks about you can have the high performer, low trust in your team, and they destroy culture. and you can have a medium performer with high trust around the team. And he said it's easy to find out who these people are. The question to the team is, who's the arsehole?
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, no, and it's a great video, so you should watch that. It kind of picks some of the parts around communication, because I think where I've probably lost trust with my team, it's not my intentions, which are always good, and I could look anyone in the eye there. It's when I've miscommunicated.
Well, on Gemma's point, like, there's a brilliant analogy around it, which is about about letting people know where you're trying to go to. What you were saying, like if you were sitting watching a fox chase a rabbit, like this. Rabbit does these incredible moves to get away from the fox. It breaks its back, it goes over these logs and round and up and down. Like, imagine if you couldn't see the fox, you'd just think the rabbit was off its head. So you've got to let your team see the fox, and then they go, okay, this is brilliant. I know where we're going here.
Yeah.
So many agents I talk to that they change the strategy. Maybe they've spoken to someone like myself or Matt or Sarah or whoever it might have been, has given them some insight, and they've gone, this is brilliant, this is the way we're going. Yeah. But then their whole team's targeted based on a different idea. Yeah. And they're going, no one's interested in this.
To all vegetarians and vegans, the rabbit got away.
But I just want to pick up on that, and this is one of the things, is you to be a really great leader, you have to be a crap one. You have to go through the learning process of making mistakes, probably hiring wrong people, not making things clear enough, not having the difficult conversations with the people that are destroying your culture. I've made those mistakes only in very recent years. And the courage to be able to look in the mirror. I think you talk about compassion. Vulnerability as a leader is probably one of the critical skills for today. Imagine if Boris, I'll never mention his name, stood there and actually said, yeah, we've absolutely messed up. We've done all of these, and he's not the character, that's why he's got no trust. But the bottom line is he fesses up, he takes responsibility and comes up with the ability to be able to connect with people through trust. And that is the thing that I think most people, if you go and speak around and meet people around the country, who would they follow? They follow people they believe in, they trust. And you don't trust people who are always right. You don't trust people who are, in the nicest possible way, always talking about how they done it and how great they were once upon a time. You follow people that absolutely can connect with the person that they're trying to inspire and lead. And that's to say things like, Gemma's in our group, she's the MD of the gigs group, because she's a way better MD than I am. There's things that I do well, and Gemma will say she'll wheel me out for those, but she quickly wheels me away from the other stuff that I tend to mess up. But that's self-awareness. That comes back down to vulnerability with yourself, looking in the mirror and going, I'm just no good at that. That's just not my strength. It's not to avoid it, it's to recognise it.
The ex-CEO of Charles Thirret, the shirt company, said exactly that. He said, I took the company to a certain level and then sacked myself because I knew that I wasn't the right person to take it further.
Yeah. And I think, going back to the point that Russell brought us on to, if you go back to the companies, countrywide, excuse me, I nearly said
you really did say a different word.
Can you edit that bit, Matt? But no, seriously, leave it in. I left that business in 2012. I'd left it mentally in 2010 because we were asked to do things that people at the top weren't prepared to do themselves. So going back to show. And I think that's such an important part. I believe in our industry, you really need to understand who the people are in your organisation, what their challenges are, and be able to help them through it.
One of the toughest things with that leadership and that culture side is it's easy to identify the people that are not performing, going, they're get rid of them. To identify high performers that are ruining your culture and do something about it, that's where leadership comes, because the rest of the team go, thank God you got rid of that guy. But for you, it's a bit of a blow, because this is my top performer. Well, he's ruining my culture, and I've got to show respect to the rest of my team.
And at the moment,
do something.
But then you've got to redefine performance, haven't you?
Yeah.
Because he's not he's your top seller. Yeah. He's not your top performer.
Yeah, that's a really great point.
And that's about the demonstrate what is important in your team. What are the behaviours that we live and die by?
Let him get away with it because he does lots of sales. It's like that's where it all starts.
Exactly.
Well, that's a really interesting point, because let's be honest, in recent years, people have possibly been over-promoted, or certainly earned some badges on number of sales, which maybe they haven't directly created because the market's been the best negotiator. So how do you unpick that as a leader? Because at the moment, I reckon a lot of small businesses, medium-sized businesses are looking at their pipeline, they're looking at their costs, they're looking at their people. What do they do next?
Well, they're certainly looking at their costs, and I think that's going to be the leadership that comes to the fore now in the next 6 to 12 months.
Okay.
Because you have to be looking at your costs, and you have to make some very tough decisions. And being a leader is about making some very unpleasant decisions, but as long as you do them with the right way and with empathy and humanity. I mean, I have got rid of many hundreds, probably thousands of people in my life at Foxtons and at Marshall Parsons, but never once do I believe that I got rid of someone that I shouldn't have done, because frankly you don't fire someone that you think is going to be good for your business. You just don't, but you have to do it in a nice way. I think coming now into what's coming down the line, and it's not as bad as anyone says it is, but it is going to be pretty tough. Let's not kid ourselves. So you have to look at your cost and make some really tough decisions, and you need to look at all your costs and all your people. And if you have people that have just, someone mentioned earlier, that have just been treading water and just existing for a while, this market will find them out pretty damn quick, and you have to get rid of them pretty damn quick.
But you're absolutely right. You've got to have those difficult conversations sooner rather than
Yeah.
later.
You
I
really
think
have.
sometimes
Absolutely.
empathy and compassion gets confused with empathy and compassion in a way. Actually, you're a business person at the end of the day, aren't you? You have to make those decisions and act upon them now,
Yep.
rather than
For the great
because you're a great leader and
Because
you're
you're too nice.
compassionate and you kick the can down the road to the
Leaders aren't
inevitable
always
3
nice.
months. No, and you're quite right. I think though, we have to obviously look at costs, but I think it's really, really important that we don't just go cutting everything.
Agreed.
I think we've got to.
You've seen that in the
You've got
start
to
of the
spend,
pandemic.
you've got to make investments, haven't you?
Well,
You've got spending money. It's got to be on, and to your point, marketing budget. You've got if you're
Well, you've got to have a plan.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
the plan,
exactly.
doesn't it? Right.
Yeah.
So, what is the plan for the people and the marketing and all the various different components of your business?
and if we're going to spend money, what is it on in line with that plan
And-
for the best returns and investment?
Right, but because what I am absolutely astonished by is how little time some estate agency owners spend going, what is the return on investment on that spend? It is just a spend. And then, they count how many leads did we get from Rightmove because Rightmove tell them, and how many leads did we get from Zoopla because Zoopla tell them. But other than that, it's all kind of just like, well, we need a social media person, and we need that, and so we need someone to do floor plans, and it's all just, so it's just huge line items. And actually, we're not saying, what is the ROI on all of this?
Because that's a to-do list, isn't it? Not a plan.
Correct.
I think the costs obviously are important, and the industry is going to have to cut its cloth according to what the market does next year. But I think one of the fundamentals that I reckon will be overlooked by a lot of estate agencies is the fact that the market has changed. Not just the market, but therefore the whole approach to estate agency. So if you're 27 and you've been in an estate agency for 6 or 7 years and you're now a branch manager, you have never seen a normal market. You have not seen a market that is conducive with what we're about to potentially hit, although I am the token optimist around the table. So the conversations, you talk about tough conversations, the conversations from the older, experienced people in the business, whether they're at director level, manager level or whatever, to actually re-educate, horrible word, re-educate the rank and file in terms of what that means for your day-to-day. So that does mean being more careful on pricing strategy, valuation, whatever you want to call it. It does mean going back into your database. It does mean that offer that you didn't think that you were going to be able to tie up 3 or 4 months ago, that sort of offer now is the one that you work on for an extra 2 or 3 days. Yeah. What about your valuations that you did 3, 4, 5 months ago, and you know that there's an applicant that actually might suit that off-market property, the old school stuff that we all used to do 10, 15, 20 years ago that's I think largely disappeared from the industry. Those conversations with your business, when I say your business, I mean everybody within it, in terms of realigning vision, expectation and just process, I think is the one thing that I reckon will lack in 2023. Because I think a lot of people will do what we're suggesting here around cost, and they'll talk about, well, yeah, okay, we'll drop on the market and Zoopla, we'll stay with Rightmove, and what we'll do, we won't replace all the cars and the photocopies, we might close a branch. I think that's a big mistake just to focus on costs. When the other side is just trying to get your unfair share, if you like, of the local market as an agent.
What are the opportunities? So not just costs, it's opportunities. Because if you remove your resource to maximise the opportunities, then naturally you're cutting off one leg.
Well, you are, because your biggest investment are your people.
Are your people.
We're a people industry, not a property industry.
For me, it would be, I'd be thinking about my marketplace, thinking about the demographic profile of the customers in the marketplace.
Yeah.
Because again, you just thinking UK, it's not all city. There's locations where it is going and sitting and having a coffee in the town hall once a week. And so understand my marketplace, thinking about the opportunities, additional revenue streams, because if I can generate revenue and cut costs, that would be good, and automate as many processes as I could. So automate as much marketing as I can, automate as much the lettings profile as I can, and redeploy the people.
Yeah.
If I can.
It's essential. I mean, automating, there's a lot of tech's hit the industry in the last 10, 15 years. A lot of tech. I mean, that's a bit of a minefield in itself.
Yeah.
One of the questions I was going to ask is, has the technology actually helped a state agency? And there's two answers to that. But just coming back to one of the things, because your biggest investment's your people. One of the things, saying Sarah's one of my property professionals, if you like, or a manager of business, I want to just make sure that we're on the same page first. What are our expectations now, looking forward? And someone who I hold in high regard, my mentor Anthony Iain, said to me, there's two things that you need to do with your people: is agree what's expected, and then talk regularly about how you're doing versus those expectations. And I don't think people really know what's expected. I don't think enough people running an estate agency know what to expect, and there's your problem. So you've got the person paying the salary thinking, well, if I cut them out, it saves me a couple of grand a month, for argument's sake. Could be more, could be less. But they could be your best investment if you just got onto the same page. Now, even without a vision, you could probably agree something, which is, look, what are we going to do here? What can we agree that's going to be your role?
The problem is that most managers or people with a management responsibility don't know how easy that is to do. Management is having difficult conversations. It's scary, and this is not a property industry thing on its own. This is every industry. I used to work in the tech world, and where did our managers come from? They were good engineers. And when we do exactly, great estate agents become managers when they're probably not suited to be managers. They should just carry on being great estate agents. Being a manager is about, to some extent, being self-aware, being able to have conversations, being able to set expectations and give feedback. And that's really not a difficult thing to do, but it feels like a difficult thing to do. It's like there's a mental barrier. I've got to give someone feedback. They might not take it very well, so I won't do it. We won't manage, like you said earlier, the poor performer out because actually we're worried people might have to work harder, and so therefore that's a bad idea on all levels, so we'll just carry on as we are. Actually, management is not difficult. It's not rocket science. It is about agreeing expectations. It is about giving feedback. You've got to start somewhere, but not avoid the conversations.
I think it is difficult.
I find it very difficult.
And I think that's why most people aren't good managers. In fact, very few people are good managers and fewer are good leaders. And I think it's just, I don't know what it is, but it's not an easy thing to do. And most people can't do it. And most people can't give very direct feedback.
Yeah, I think it's something you learn over time. And I think you give someone feedback once, make a pig's ear of it. Give someone feedback twice, do it slightly better. Give someone feedback 3 times. It's too easy to say it's difficult and not do it.
It's experiential learning.
Yeah.
My question, I suppose, for you, Gemma, would be: do you think it's something that can be trained, or do you think it is something that needs to be learned over time?
It's both. So for me, training is a scary thing. We invest in a day's training and we expect people to come back to the office the next day and do something differently.
Absolutely nonsense.
Training is giving people an idea. Learning is actually then turning that idea into knowledge and experience
and outcomes. You just want the outcome, don't you?
I recently, so we have a self-appraisal process and we have a manager who's never followed the self-appraisal process before. And it didn't take long by doing a couple of self-appraisals with him so that he understood the process, for then to sit with him to then do 3 self-appraisals with people where he took the lead and I gave feedback or challenged or kind of asked questions, for him then to be able to do it on his own. It doesn't take, so to answer your question, that's probably 5 hours between not having a clue what to do and doing a pretty good self-appraisal. And it's that we we fill ourselves with fear of having these conversations, so we don't have them.
But let's be honest, how many difficult conversations do we have with partners, in relationships, that end up being the best thing that we could have done? And there's not many of those that don't count, but they happen in a bubble or in a moment where it explodes or whatever, because we're not having them on a regular basis.
Constructive conflict is one of the main reasons for advancement in science, medicine, and those sorts of things. Because I know I'm going off topic massively here. There's nothing.
And business, isn't it?
And business.
And business.
And you know, if you can get to a position where constructive conflict is encouraged and harnessed in a respectful way, to some degree, what we've had a little bit today here is no, it's not necessarily about who's right and wrong. It's about what is the right outcome for the person who is receiving this final information. Am I allowed to touch back on what you said about tech? Sorry, because actually I think you've made a really good point, and I'm just going to go there. I don't know if we're there yet.
Keep going.
But there have been so many prop tech solutions come to this industry in the last 5 years, maybe a little more. I mean, really, hundreds and hundreds. You only have to go to any conference, and there's just stands and stands and stands of people suggesting they're going to change your world.
There's about 1,000 UK prop tech firms, and there's now about 10,000 globally. Prop tech.
Wow.
Prop tech.
And I'm wondering, I often wonder, how many of them solve an actual problem? Number one is a question that I ask myself all the time. And so back to what would I be doing if I was a leader?
Yeah.
I would be reviewing my business and some of the potential headwinds and problems that I have in my business. And I would be spending, if I have got a little bit more time. And by the way, most of the people that are watching this, if you're a business owner, have definitely been to one, if not more, conferences this year. The ticket prices are insane. The train travel is ridiculously expensive. The hotels in London are nuts. So I'm speaking from personal experience. So you have likely spent thousands of pounds to go to these conferences. What have you actually learned from this? So why don't you look at your businesses now and say, what headwinds have I got right now? 42% fall through rate potentially is one of them. Property not coming to the market, not having a nurture journey in place might be another. But there's been countless others. What are the challenges that I've got now and expecting, and draw a line between that and the prop tech solutions that actually fix it, and then start engaging properly with those businesses. So to your point, let's not just cut all costs. Let's make a cost that actually solves the problem, that therefore makes me more efficient, saves me money, saves me time, whatever it might be. Then we've got an appropriate business plan.
All of that comes back. The whole thing all comes back to a plan, doesn't it? If I look back to some of the first businesses I had where things, went all right, some of them didn't work, some of them was okay, versus, successful businesses I've had in the past whereby I feel like I'm a better leader, and compare the two, what was the difference? It was really just a plan. Because now, when someone joins our company, I can tell them what we're trying to do. We're very, very big on core values. It doesn't have to be about core values, but the point is that I go to town talking to these people about how our 3 core values work. And every 3 months you're gonna have a conversation with me or your line manager around these core values, and if you don't do them, you won't work here anymore.
What are they, Mark?
Be an expert, be committed, be connected. So be an expert is around self-development. These are the most important things to us. So you need to come at your quarterly meeting and show us what you've done around self-development. Don't come to the quarterly meeting and say, I've just been so busy, I haven't done anything. Because if you do that, you can't work here anymore. So I don't care if you take a day off. We give unlimited paid holiday. You can take as much time off as you please to do self-development. Don't come to the meeting and tell me you haven't done it. I want you to be connected. You need to know what you're doing in your team that's making someone else's life a misery. So you need to go and work in the different departments and go, if I didn't do this, would that make your life easier? And then the final one, so we've got be an expert, be committed, be connected. So the committed side of things, kind of covered it already. I don't care if it's 5:30. If something needs doing, do it. And it's not a one-way street. The flip side, like I say, you can have unlimited paid holiday. It's a two-way street. Right? It's total flexibility around this. I believe in the outcomes, not the outputs. Right? So I go to town on that recruitment meeting, and what it led to was me being able to fire somebody and hug them with a smile without feeling bad at all. It was like, I
can
didn't
look in the
do
mirror.
this. Wait a minute, you did this. I didn't do this. I can go like, oh, I'm so sorry, you can't work here no more.
Do you think you might be a psychopath?
I think it's possible.
It's been
possible.
said
It
before.
has been said many times. But the point is, it doesn't need to be about the core values, right? It just needs to be, this is the plan, this is what we're all going to do together. And now we're all part of this team. Yeah, we're all in it. Yeah, we're all in it. Great.
Yeah, and if at any
then
point
all of a
that
sudden-
plan doesn't appeal
then all
to
of a
you,
sudden
then
the management
go and find
conversation
one that
doesn't
does.
become
It's
that
not as
difficult.
difficult.
In my old self, I didn't really have a plan. It was like, well, we're trying to sell this product. What else is there to say? And then I'd let things bubble.
Yeah.
And somehow I'd look at the back of an employee's head and want to kick it like a football. But I wouldn't say anything to that
No,
person.
yeah.
There was nothing to say.
Say.
And then one day it
That's
would
the key.
blow up. And
That's
they'd
the
go, I didn't even realise there was a problem. So
Yeah.
it all goes back to that original plan of what's the point of this company? Who's going to come in the team that wants to really be part of this? And then some accountability around it.
Yeah,
Like,
lovely.
I thought we spoke about the fact that you weren't going to just go off without finishing work for the day.
When you put it like that, though, when you actually put it like that, and for anybody who's watching this, it's not that difficult.
And that's why I say management is if you come back to set expectations and give people feedback about those expectations, it is really simple.
But you've got to do it.
Yeah.
You've got to.
It is taking the action.
It is.
Very good.
And taking the responsibility.
Guys, I think we're
That's
producing.
spot on.
There's some brilliant content that's coming out today. I really hope that it comes across through the video.